fallen for this, where I've been putting like some of my business ideas for my own business through it. And by the end of several hours, I'm just like,
here's the most fun thing in terms of how it leans. The top one, the very top value that it leans toward is helpfulness, which sounds really good until you realize
there's this extra work now, like auditing, that the human really understands as a result of sycophancy, taking the best advice from an AI and to use for something as important as feature prioritization. Welcome to another episode of AI After Hours. Each month, we cut through the hype by answering your top questions and calling bullshit on half the AI headlines that don't make any sense. Join us for a monthly roundup of AI news and real insights into what's true and what's not in the world of artificial intelligence. Have a question or topic? Email us and join the conversation. Let's dive into the world of AI together.
I'm your co-host, Yuying Chen-Wynn, product and technology executive with extensive experience in AI, fintech, and edtech. I'm an ex-chief product officer, AI executive, currently leading everything generative AI at the financial company Peak Six and its family of companies. I specialize in building high-performing teams that actually understand what it means to meaningfully leverage AI into your business. And I love talking about AI. You may or may not be able to tell by now, but especially, or not only, with my co-host.
You cheating on me? I'm that co-host. My name is Polly Allen, and I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product managers and leaders navigate the world of AI and thrive in AI leadership roles. I've spent my career in both the product management and software development sides of the fence of developing products, and I'm an Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. And I'm especially excited to be here today with Yuying, chatting about AI. We just love to geek out about this stuff. I'm especially in this after hours format where we usually get some kind of bevy going and get to kind of just spill the tea. Where today it's Irish coffee, but you know.
Yep. Actually, sometimes we probably need to bring some. I'm having a little bit of a sweet tooth today, so we're having a 10-year port. So very rich and refined, a little bit. Just get you going there. So.
Classy.
Yeah, I could pretend. It's okay. I could pretend for an hour. Classy. We will find out soon enough. Okay. With that, we start with our monthly AI news roundup. Now, this is not every AI news that happens, but in the age of AI, what really matters is our judgment. So this is our filter for what's actually meaningful to you in the month of May. I'm going to start actually with OpenAI. Oh my God, the shock. What is there news for OpenAI?
They're still around?
Yeah, a couple of big ones. They have decided to stay nonprofit. I don't know if you guys remember that whole hullabaloo of going profit, nonprofit. It is not finalized because they're still negotiating with Microsoft because there was so much backlash when they said they were going to go for profit. Now, here's the thing. When they go nonprofit, it doesn't mean the investors can't make money. There just happens to be a cap. You know what the cap was for the nonprofit?
Was it nonprofit or capped profit before? I thought it was capped profit.
Yeah.
Like it was like you can get a profit, but only up to
100x.
Yeah.
100x. Only up to 100x.
Oh no.
Yeah. So
let's cry collectively for the
let me give you all the OpenAI news together and then get your take on OpenAI as of right now. OpenAI 4.0. I don't know if anybody noticed, there was a release and then there was a rollback. And Sam Altman himself tweeted about why the rollback, and it was sycophancy. He said himself that the model was too sycophantic, and there was a nice screenshot. Not sure how that even got out there in first place, but that was amusing. In more interesting moves,
let's talk about the sycophancy thing. I think is important because I think it goes to like everyone thinks, oh yeah, we know we have to double check the answers and stuff, right? But I've fallen for this where I've been putting like some of my business ideas for my own business through it, and by the end of going like several hours, I'm just like, man, this is a genius thing. And then like I'll come back the next day, and you're like, specifically if you ask it, hey, you know, play devil's advocate, tell me why this isn't going to work. All of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like your ego is programmed to love what it's giving you when it is sycophantic, right? When it is telling you how great all your ideas are. I think it's, I don't know. I'm like,
it is
I feel like
very dangerous.
but people don't seem to they overestimate their ability to like counteract that.
Yeah, because this is essentially just a continuation of what social media's impact on society has been, because you keep getting fed your own ideals and makes you believe that a minority opinion is majority because that's all you see and you think the entire internet is that way, but that's just the algo. So if the AI does the same thing, except it's actually more persuasive to tell you how sure it is of how great your ideas are,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very dangerous. Let me finish up two more on the open AI.
Yeah.
So the whole AI coding thing is
Mm,
huge.
yes, there are advances there.
They're buying Windsurf.
Yeah.
They are by one of the bigger ones, one of my favorite ones, actually, the ones that I use, and it's actually really well done. So they are heavy duty coming into the coding space. And then lastly, it's more the vertical one. OpenAI has launched Health Bench. It's a healthcare benchmark specifically, um, looking at diagnosis against data that's been labeled by actual physicians. Now, here's a little bit of a problem, of course. Number one, benchmarks like this is absolutely essential. But number two, hey, guess who tops the benchmark list? O3, their own thinking model. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest when you
Right.
when your own model tops your own benchmark.
Bench.
But I'm still glad it exists because that means somebody will probably take that and try to make it more independent. But that gives you like a what do you think about what OpenAI is doing with all of these changes and where they're headed?
Across the board. I mean, they've got such a huge surface area to try to cover while they're growing massively, right? And I do think it was kind of funny the coding thing in particular. Like they were not like bad at coding before. I think they just were annoyed because everyone was talking about how well Claude is the one who's got better coding. I feel like it's this like
They
ego
do.
thing. They're
They
like,
do.
we want to be number one at everything, but particularly coding because everyone involved in the building of this is heavy into engineering backgrounds and things like that. So yeah, buying Windsurf is actually stepping into that full on, whole app stack development piece,
Yeah.
a little more beyond what you're able to do. Even though I don't know, I feel like Claude was always skating ahead in that ability to actually like host apps within Claude and like build prototypes and stuff.
You
And
know,
so they're like,
Windsurf used to
how can we do
default to Claude as the model. I don't,
this?
they're probably not, but that's what I use Windsurf on is with Claude. That was what his default
Yeah.
was. And the other one, I realized I totally missed it, but the OpenAI and John Ives uh, device startup.
Oh, right.
What,
Of course.
what
John
I'm,
Ives, of course, famous Apple
yeah,
designer.
yeah, device. So going into hardware, what I see OpenAI is going after, they're going to become a hyperscaler. They're looking at the entire tech stack. They're out there to compete against Microsoft, Google,
Yeah,
Apple, AWS, on
exactly.
top or Amazon top down.
Exactly. And be on record track for scaling to that too. Um, yeah, it's both exciting, but it's also I keep hearing from people
Terrifying.
there's been so much investment in them, right? So there is an element of like they do have to grow to that size to justify some of the investment that's been made in them. Just so people get their 100x
Yeah.
return.
Uh,
But but yeah, at the same time, for any of the little guys, you're like, how do you compete with that, right? All of a sudden now, if you've had a device startup that was going to leverage OpenAI, you've got a pretty big shark in the water coming after your slice of the pie.
yeah. It's fascinating to watch. And I feel like the only one that's going to give them a run for their money is actually my other favorite one, Anthropic Claude. So here's the Claude latest
For sure.
update. The first one, unfortunately, is not positive. Did you hear about the Opus 4 in pre-testing, blackmailing? Did you hear about possibly exploding his ex-marital affair? You know, when I read that headline, I'm like, I feel like somebody had AI generate this headline, and that's because I was just trying to think through. I'm like, how would this even happen? How does this
Yeah.
work?
Right. I know. I remember thinking the same thing. Like it definitely to me seemed like one of those headlines where I don't know, they just there's always this like taking these behaviors and attributing them because the next step is like, oh, it's basically sentient, isn't it? And I'm like, no, I really don't think it is. It happened to have been creative in this case to do
Yeah,
something that the model's been motivated to be trained to do. It seemed very like dramatic and like wording it as blackmail and specifically like it
yeah.
looked like it was a clickbait
and this
kind
is
of
and
thing.
this is part of pre-testing, and some parts of pre-testing are very specifically looking at power-seeking behavior to see where it would go. And eventually, somebody said there was some specialized prompting involved. I'm like, anyone who actually works in the space is like, it can't really do this on its own without some
People are
kind of
picturing like, oh, it's watching me through the camera and like it knew about my personal life and in new intricate ways. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But the more fun, so Anthropic Cloud is definitely one of my favorite, not only in terms of model performance, but in terms of the company. And one of the main things they do I really like is they share the data of their usage. You get an idea whether or not you believe they represent a majority of use case in terms of how people are using what could be the potential impact. So two things, because I've talked about their data before, but two I want to say. One, their usage. So how people use Claude.
Yeah.
The
They've been really
data set
great.
is public. And I highlighted this before. So software engineering related tasks, 37%. That's
Mm,
more than a third. And
yeah.
while we all go, hey, Claude is great at writing, great at writing, great at writing, 10.3% of all usage in Claude. Now, one of my favorite things, and these are all public, you can go look, download the data set, do your own analysis, is they put down this chart of the AI usage versus the wage of the median salary.
Oh, so like as if like made of a salary of who they would replace, basically, like replacing a software engineer or replacing an editor.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You
Okay.
you want to take a look at that. What's so interesting is that the salary range where it hits the most is right smack dab in the middle. It's not the very, very high end. It's not the very, very bottom. It's actually in the middle. I didn't
Mm.
actually do the breakdown, but I found
Oh,
that fascinating. This is one of the reasons why I love the fact that their data is publicly available. You can go do your own analysis if you don't understand that piece. The second piece, also, I know, obviously, I'm a data nerd, but they did a values research with Claude in terms of the model itself, what values, right? So we're talking about more around ethical values or what it
yeah.
prioritizes, etc.
Alignment. Yeah.
Right? Here's the most fun thing in terms of uh, how it leans. The top one, the very top value that it leans towards is helpfulness, which sounds really good until you realize helpfulness is also very agreeable and is very much just right on the bottom of range of sycophancy. If you've ever seen Claude's released master prompt, they do actually release their master prompt. It actually says under there that they're not supposed to be super agreeable and answer everything. But still, that is helpfulness is their top value. Then it's professionalism and transparency. Now, there's more in here. I found those very interesting. One of the other pieces that I looked at this that I found fascinating is they showed what category. So Claude is the constitutional AI that tries to steer users away from harmful content, right, being generated. And you look at the category what they consider harmful content is your normal like harm, physical harm to people, mental harm, societal harm, etc. Now, the last category surprised me a little bit, and it's autonomy,
Mm.
what they consider harmful content, because they will, if you've ever done any of these things that you tell them to kind of give you an answer, they will always tell you to involve human in the loop or go check it yourself or do so.
Right. It's best if you go check. Even
Yeah,
something the other day, like does AAA offer auto insurance for a car you're going to buy tomorrow? It was like, you really should check with AAA.
yeah, yeah. So I found that fascinating because that was an unexpected category for me. And I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from. Is there, they understand kind of the risk of everybody just relying on the AI and assume that's the answer. So they're considering anything where they give you a very conclusive answer without prompting you to go autonomously and on your own verify a
Yeah.
harmful content category.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What do you
Oh,
think
yeah.
of Anthropic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I really love that. It feels like they're attempting to do some things in thoughtful ways where OpenAI is very much the like move fast and break things kind of company in the space, right? And they're like, we're going to not look at copyright law. We're going to just forge ahead no matter what. And we're AGI or bust, right? Has really been their mantra. um, that really thoughtful attention to alignment and being a lot more open with their data like this has garnered Anthropic a lot of well-deserved kudos, you know. Um, and I think it's showing through in things like this. They're kind of bringing along the community along for the ride along the way in a way that like OpenAI and Microsoft's of the world are not.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Microsoft, thank you for teeing that up. We don't usually update Microsoft on their own a lot because they're kind of known for being ahead of the curve because of their partnership with OpenAI. But they
Mhm.
had a bunch of releases. I think of them as me too, but really for Microsoft, it's a step in the more independent direction. So they launched with their Copilot, so both Office and their normal Copilot enterprise search. So you know
Yeah,
that Bing has an internet search, but the enterprise search that they've launched, which Google also has, which the big AI competitor, of course, is Glean. Notebooks. So Google has a notebook LM, which is getting a lot of press, etc. Microsoft now has their own
yeah.
notebooks. The both Google and Microsoft now has the semantic knowledge graph layer that gets built as a result of enterprise search, where they base all other custom development on top of, especially, of course, as it's coming in all the agents. So
Mm,
we talked about deep search before.
yeah,
OpenAI obviously has its own, but Microsoft Copilot now has its own deep search and data
yeah.
analyst agents, and these are not OpenAI. So so if OpenAI is going to go nonprofit, unclear how the Microsoft vision work. It looks like OpenAI is going straight after being a hyperscaler. Microsoft really needs to become more independent. That's what I think this signals. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Microsoft?
Yeah, I agree. It's they've been in a tough spot, I think, because one, I feel like the co-pilot promises didn't quite deliver, right? There was a lot of sense from enterprise that they kind of tried it out and they're like, wah, wah, where it was like, where's the magic? There's some basic things that it does, but we really expected more, given that you have so much of our
Data.
data. That's it.
Yeah.
Like the integrations needed to be much deeper than they were and like deliver more compelling like cross app insights or even just people were disappointed that the Excel integration, for example, wasn't as as fully featured as some people might have imagined, right? You're talking about one of the most in-depth, fully featured pieces of software that's ever existed in terms of what
Yep.
you can do with Excel. So like they're spoiled for choice for where they can integrate it. And of course they needed to get something out. But I feel like they with the heels of Copilot kind of not necessarily delivering on everyone's expectations. And then now they're launching things, but they're all very, like you said, these are all things
Me too.
people have had, right? And they're not even like coming up for new terms with them. So I feel like they've lost their momentum. When they were first launching with that co-pilot analogy, I really loved the marketing around that. Like that to me is really the vibe around AI is like, hey, how can it be assistive? How can it superpower humans as opposed to replace them? But yeah, I feel like they need something big to kickstart themselves as like this source of innovation, right? Because right now
Independent
it's
of OpenAI.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Waiting for that because I do know they've been accumulating some of the talent. I think one of the ones we noted much earlier, but it'll take some time. So,
Yeah.
but kind of speaking of hyperscalers, kind of finally coming into some of this independence, I've been waiting for Google to do better in AI. Google, I
Do
mean,
better, Google. So true.
Google DeepMind had literally all the brain power around AI. That was, if you just try to search up how many hot AI companies where the founders are ex Google DeepMind,
Yeah.
you're like, oh wow, it's all of them. Forget the PayPal mafia. This is the DeepMind. Um, but so we just had Google I/O, and actually our team got personal demos afterwards in terms of a bunch of things announced. And I've actually had switched over to the Gemini 2.5 Pro in my coding
Yeah.
because I got stuck with Claude. So let me tell you the couple of things we're excited about. Whether or not we can see it yet, I feel like Google is finally arriving to be a serious competitor, and they're completely vertically integrated. If you think about what OpenAI is trying to go to, Google is already there.
Yeah.
The AI mode in Google search, especially the big shopping pieces, the fanning out, their deep research, etc.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my Google search, but I'm very excited about the potential of what they're describing. So we want to watch out for that. That's the consumer access.
Mhm.
There's the virtual try on with the shopping, etc. There is the real lifetime interaction agentic. There
So many
is,
things.
they have an asynchronous code agent called Jules
Mm.
that you can connect to your GitHub Copilot and just tell it to be like, okay, upgrade my React to the next version of this whole code base, and it will go through without. We're talking about asynchronous, so it continuously go do this something like at that base. And we talked a lot about Lovable and Replit, these app generation. They've launched their own in Firebase Studio, and
Yeah.
it's vertically integrated through their infrastructure. So you get the database, you get the server, you get the all of this. Now,
Yeah.
the UI generation is not great. I'll tell you that right now. I immediately tried it immediately, but they are getting there. The
Yeah.
2.5 model has done really well for me. The deep thinking, they have now real time audio with 2.5 Flash native audio to counteract OpenAI's real time audio. They're
Yeah.
integrated into the Chrome desktop. Okay, that's too much compressed, but Google entire AI strategy and play. What are your thoughts on them right now?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was so much. There was this overwhelming amount of buzz that came out of Google I/O, right? And there's some definitely some very slick demos, for example, of the new AI search mode. They are clearly like aware of they're losing out to places like
Oh
perplexity.ai on the
yes.
search
Oh
space.
yes.
So whereas Perplexity has done things like integrated with PayPal for payments, they were clearly addressing you can shop online on this, right? Directly. We help you shop. We help you find local relevant results, right? We have all your information, hint, hint, like we can do better, not in a threatening way, hopefully. Um, but I'm like you, I just think like they're doing exciting things, but it's either they've got to leap ahead at some point, right? And I mean, I do have seen like the everyone's doing the videos from VO. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like they can't keep up technically,
Right.
right, with developing new models. They absolutely can. But what's interesting, I think, is like they're maybe a little more developer centric. When you look at both OpenAI and Claude, the current chief product officers are actually for Claude. He's actually the ex-founder of Instagram and OpenAI. He's ex CPO of Instagram and Twitter. So it's very like, oh, for you actually want to develop like consumer facing, really engaging experiences with this.
Yeah.
Google keeps not doing it. Right. And the search, I was just talking to someone the other day, like even their general Google search, sometimes it generates the AI overviews, sometimes it doesn't. You're like, I'm like, you're training me that I can't get this consistently. What do
Yeah.
I come to you for? You
Yeah.
know?
It's supposed to be
Um,
richer and better, and you're right. I default now to Perplexity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I do. Unless there's something where I'm like, I want to build a mental model, but even then, I feel like I can do that better on Perplexity for search. Um, so not to poo-poo. I mean, they have so many initiatives, and I also feel like they have a combo of this bigger war chest and then this bigger data moat from anyone else, right? That they can continue to not be the best, like to not hit it out of the park for a long time before they have a lot of potential angles where they clearly are just going to be the best at it.
Yeah. I have to say
Um,
that from an enterprise perspective, enterprises are waiting for them and for Microsoft to do it right because most enterprises' infrastructure is already with them, right?
yeah,
As cool as Perplexity is, yeah, okay, you guys can use it for a search, but really, if we want to get deeper and create enterprise applications,
exactly.
they
Agentic
have the
systems,
time for
workflow.
wait,
Yeah,
but not too long.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, completely, and that's it. Those that are places that are already Google Cloud backends, will be really happy that this stuff is coming. I mean, it is just more ready for enterprise in a lot of cases, right?
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah. And that wraps us up
News.
for our main news with all the big players.
We had so much news going on. Thanks so much, Yuying.
Yeah.
All the big players this month.
Yep.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, let's dive on to our second section, which is the top questions that are coming up in AI. So whether it's the companies that I'm working with, things that we're seeing asked on the internet, specifically on LinkedIn. The main question I wanted to chat about this month is an area I know near and dear to your heart, Yuying, is about the usage of AI for product teams and product managers. And I had just written an article last month about vibe PMing.
Oh, it's a new term. Okay.
Yeah, well, because it's like more and more. So, and to be clear about how I define vibe coding, I my when this term started for vibe coding, it was Andre Karpathy, ex OpenAI, etc. He would tweet it about how, isn't it funny? I
Mm-hmm.
can do this thing where I'm coding, but I kind of just hitting tab and autocomplete to accept what it's doing. If it says fix, I've got a problem, I just say fix it. I'm not developing a mental model of the code. I'm just going with the flow. He was not recommending this as like best practice. He was like, I do this for my side projects.
Because it's
Isn't it
fun.
funny that this actually kind of works? Like that was the original intent of this, right? And then it's been blown up to people are saying, "Oh my gosh, you're going to use this instead of real developers," and all these dangers and like don't exist because no one ever suggested that, right? So similarly with PMing, I'm finding I've heard from a lot of organizations now that there's this like apprehension around adoption because they're worried that product managers in particular, someone junior, might just kind of like throw all their feature set into a Claude or a Gemini or OpenAI prompt and say, prioritize these for me, right? And that they're discouraging the use of AI because otherwise they're like, now I have to like quiz this product manager to understand, do they really understand their roadmap? Did they really thoughtfully prioritize this? And there's this extra work now of like auditing that the human really understands, and they weren't, again, just as a result of sycophancy, taking the best advice from an AI for use for something as important as feature prioritization, right? So yeah, I'd love to hear you. You're teaching an upcoming section about AI product management being not AI products, but how product managers can use AI. What are the places where we need not just human in the loop, but human deep involvement, right? And you can't just vibe PM your way through. And what are the places where you can, right?
Yeah. So definitely in terms of AI upskilling for product manager, project managers, what I call the tech adjacent roles. That's like one of the biggest trends.
Mhm.
I'm teaching with section. You've taught it. I've had other friends from similar backgrounds who are teaching it, directed enterprises, courses on Maven. If you guys want to look for it, they exist.
Mhm.
Obviously, generative AI can be very helpful, right? The research pieces, the brainstorming pieces, the prototyping pieces. Now, the problem is what we were talking about before is when the PM don't have good judgment themselves, just take the answers to be the files. It's very dangerous in prioritization, very dangerous in when you're proving out a concept. Is there product market fit? Even more so if you're using, and this is a new trend as well, synthetic users for user studies. Can
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
imagine? We just talked about them being very agreeable. But the thing is, there is ways of working around it. This is why, like, part of what I teach is you always ask the AI to give you the devil's advocate opinion. So AI in general, even with Claude, a lot of times won't give you an opinion, and if it does give you an opinion, most likely it will agree with you. But if you ask it to specifically take on devil's advocate, it will do quite well arguing the opposite side. But you have to be conscious of that, and I think it's a great thing to actually test more junior PMs because there's
Mhm.
been cases where people are interviewing for jobs and they just have the AI generate the answers on the side, getting offers, etc., because it sounds great. Does your PM actually know and agree with the outcome? I never thought we would go into like the human evaluation piece of this, but Yeah, unfortunately, if I ran a full-on product team right now with some junior PMs, I would do the same. I would
Yeah,
definitely do the same. I would both upskill them and I would put controls in place to make sure that they aren't just vibing it. They can't have the product roadmap just be
yeah,
vibed. It's not going to
yeah,
make money.
exactly. You can't just vibe exactly. So it's like I don't think you can fully vibe product validation, like idea validation. I do think you could use it to narrow down, right? Or use it as a thought partner to like debate, is there a bigger problem that we should be solving? Like let's develop three alternative hypotheses before we go through with like what I just figured was the best thing, right? So casting that a little wider in that like when you're thinking divergently to converge to something maybe a little outside the box, right? That kind of thing.
Because I
But
do
I think you
love
still
using it during like user studies, but I talk to real users, but I show them prototypes. So I'm showing them something that could be what they said to verify if that was what they said. So it can be used well. Just don't do it wrong.
yeah.
Do it.
No, exactly. You still need that sanity check. And I mean, of course, it depends on how much like you're investing in this decision, right? So if this is like an existing product, established users, whatever, or it's like this is a multi-million dollar, effort that you're going to put in that needs so much more vetting with real audience than something that you're like, hey, can I quickly put out 10 ideas to the world that I'm going to potentially vibe code, right? Um, what
Wait, wait,
about
I have a cheat for you if you're a leader and you're
yeah?
reading a PRD to go, this might be AI generated, is the non-functional requirements. Anything AI generated actually does really well with the non-functional requirements, all these sections, but it's very enterprise heavy. If you're not in a large enterprise, just go check that section. That's your
Non-functional. It looks too enterprise for what you're doing.
it's like, this is kind of heavy. Like, what do we really need all this? And I've
That's true,
noticed
actually.
that.
I've noticed that. Yeah, it's trying to show, look, I'm so complete. I've thought through, but it's kind of like a kid being like, look, give me the A. And sometimes you're like, we don't need to have thought through non-functional requirements at this
Yeah,
point. It's
and I'm
still
pretty
early
sure you don't know
stages.
infosec.
Right. Yes. Yeah, totally. That's a great tip. Oh, I love it.
A little cheat code for
Oh
you.
my Yeah, exactly. Um, so validation, no. Or sorry, idea validation, road mapping. Hey, this still needs like a lot of human involvement. What about actually that like prototype development? Can PMs vibe code a prototype to like accompany the PRD, replace the PRD? Like, what do you think about the prototype stuff?
Um, Absolutely, but only if you do it right. So I've seen people do this well, and I've seen people do this terribly, where the prototype doesn't make sense. It breaks on the first one, didn't actually be helpful, or the ones that are
Yeah,
use it very specifically validated, very pieces. I can't say more than that, but it's one of those things you want to take a course or go through a program to actually. I am so serious because I've worked with PMs. Are like, oh, I can. Like, oh God, no.
yeah. You
Yeah,
can spend
it's
more time spinning your wheels than is actually valuable. I think if you haven't
or completely mislead the direction, which is worse. Spinning wheels, it's time. It's a learning
totally
experience, but being
exactly.
misled is, yeah.
Totally. Completely. The other mistake I see PMs making is forgetting that like these high fidelity prototypes it's easy to misrepresent where the project actually is. If I was like at an early stage, I want to mock up how this is going to look. I loved using Balsamic. I think it's a little signature, still self owned,
Oh yeah,
but they basically make everything look super hand drawn and sketchy. And it was
right.
like, this is really where our thoughts process is on this. Like, what if there were a window? What if there was a button? I'm not like talking about the rounding of the gradients on the buttons or anything. We're not, and it's like if something is visually very high fidelity and looks really good, again, it's so has happened so often before with mock-ups and prototypes. All of a sudden, there's a CEO who's like, "Wasn't that implemented? I thought it was done. Why isn't this out to 100,000 customers?" And you're like, "There was no security. There was no non-functional.
There's no actual database.
Clickable working prototype, and you could actually create an account and save something to get an idea of how it works. Does not mean it's ready for prime time. So I think we have to re-educate everyone again that like these look like real products, but they are not.
Yeah, be very careful demoing to your head of sales.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
especially if you're CEO that's very sales leaning. I've
Yeah.
definitely heard of the okay, launch in 2 weeks. I'm like, no, that was just
Oh, exactly. This is not. We're just going to have to be rebuilt from the ground up properly
you're like, it's
because
working. I saw it. I'm like, okay, that was fake data,
no
fake.
one wants to maintain this code base. Believe me. Yeah, exactly. We're making ourselves a whole bunch of problems. Awesome. Excellent. Well, so that was vibe PMing. How much can you vibe? And how much do you really need to PM when it comes to using AI as a product leader?
Excellent.
Fantastic.
PMs will need to learn from that one to do it. Like I said, yes, but do it right. Okay, and with that, we get to my favorite section of all podcasts, anywhere, anytime, and not because I have any bias, but it is our
Man,
BS
our
in
Irish
AI section where we
and
wait for
Irish
every and why we have to drink. No, so this is where we call out the bullshit of what's out there, the news
yes.
headlines that make no sense, and the AI generated marketing that's far better than the product itself, among many, many others.
Yes.
This month, I'm going to start with you, Polly. What is your
Yes.
BS in AI for the month of May?
So the thing that is really bugging me, the bullshit I see, is the sheer number of not only AI agencies, everyone and their uncle is launching their own AI agency right now to help companies work through adding AI to their company, but also all the accreditation to either become an AI agency or become an AI certified professional. Um, I'm all about, it sounds like I'm bitching about like the people who compete with me compared to AI Career Boost. But really, what I mean is the ones that are just ludicrously bad and out for
And lying.
yeah, I've seen companies claim that they are certified OpenAI partners. And I was like, really? I've never heard of this company. It seems like just some random URL, right? And you go and look it up. You can do a perplexity search and it will say like, well, they claim it, but it's actually not supported by anything else on the web. And OpenAI actually has a list of its partners, which include like Microsoft, you know, um, and you know they're not supported. So they're just outright lying in their ads and in their marketing. Another one I've seen is like completely generated sales pages where they're just trying to figure out, you know, hey, what works? What would a $5,000 or $10,000 course look like? Generate that sales page. Generate me a bunch of testimonials. If you go and look at the people who are giving testimonials, you can't actually look them up because they're all named Jane Smith, Mike Michaels, and they're all impossible to find on LinkedIn because they're not real. And so I just think it's so important that people do the careful vetting of understanding who they're learning from and who they're working with, especially when like if anyone, we're at that stage where you can generate yourself a really good curriculum for a lot of things online. That's a lot of what some of these people have just gone and done, right? They don't necessarily have real world experience. They haven't actually even dealt with like software and the full life cycle of software, what it means to support something once it's live. So I'm very afraid for the number of agencies out there that are going to end up disappointing customers when they get bugs down the road. They weren't expecting to actually have to support them, fix things as they change over time. The context you gave it in April has changed. The world is different. Laws or whatever are different. And this is not a one and done kind of operation. So my number one tip is make sure if you're working with an agency or you're looking for accreditation, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure that they're actually like you know, have great terms in terms of like, not even great terms. What is the kind of support you're going to get afterwards? And how comfortable are you that they're not just going to go out of business? Because everyone, right? And so it's the reason they won't make great inroads with bigger enterprises because bigger enterprises need more, can't take a risk on a small guy who may go out of business in 6 months. Um, but I think smaller companies need to understand that like um, using this as part and making it part of your critical business operations without actually doing due diligence is not a good road.
Yeah. This, unfortunately, I am on the same page with you, and it shows up so much. It is very hard for someone like you and I, like how much we worked in terms of the actual expertise to see all of this and people getting led down the wrong path. You guys got to remember, one of the first scenarios for generative AI use was marketing. It is
Yeah,
really good at marketing and generating things that will get click throughs.
yeah,
It is not good at factuality. It is not good at
Right.
making sure that testimonials actually exist, but
Yeah.
generating like I've asked AI to optimize my website. It's like, okay, you need testimonials, you need social proof, and it just started generating, based on the company I work. Like mine even looked real because they're from companies, but that's what AI is actually good at, but not the factuality. And I hate to say it, but if you can get an actual referral from people who've worked with them,
Yeah.
seen specific projects, and I always say, if anyone's saying what they're doing is magical and too good to be true, is too good to be true. AI is a messy right now. It can be amazing, but it is messy. If nobody that you talk to is talking about that and the pitfalls to watch out for and the traps that
Exactly.
you'll most likely not.
Exactly. There's a reason that the biggest, most innovative companies in the world haven't put out like, where's my amazing assistant that's going to, I just talked to her and she organizes my mail and my Google Calendar. Like this is, if you believed what everyone's talking about, what's possible with AI, this would have been here a year ago at scale from Microsoft, right? And they can't make it work reliably enough. So why are you trusting that Joe Schmo, using some new tools, who says he's like the best of the ones who claim that they've cracked the code and there's no hallucinations anymore? It just drives me crazy. They're just like, that is a clear sign that they're lying, or not measuring anything, or
Yeah.
both.
Or one thing I have to tell you guys is that in terms of the liability on the AI bias, leaking personal information, all of that, you know what? It doesn't lie with those guys. It lie with you. Even the law says the person that uses it, the company that uses it, you're the one liable because
Right.
you're the one handed out the final result. Not this
Absolutely.
agency, not even the platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if they're telling you, hey, let's do all your marketing hands off with your automated assistant, but they're not also warning you that if you have a Honda $1 car moment or an Air Canada, you have to pay bereavement leave because it made up the policy moment and you're responsible for that. They are not doing you any favors.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They love being in that business. They collect the money, no liability. Of course, they're going after you hard and
Exactly.
fast.
That is on you. Absolutely. So that's my BS. This
That's
explosion
your
of
BS. And that's
charlatan
already bad enough, charlatan. I have the biggest charlatan
of
AI
the
up
month.
until no of the month. I don't know. It's
Of the
it's
month.
gonna it's
It's the
gonna
month.
it's gonna be the biggest for a few months because otherwise
Yeah.
this industry is, oh my gosh. So Builder.ai. This
Mm-hmm.
is a company that recently declared insolvency, bankruptcy. Now, if you look at so they started in 2018. They're in the no code AI generation space, right? The hottest space. And we talked about OpenAI buying Windsurf, Codex, Cursor. Like this is one of the hottest space. I know a startup that got almost 500 million evaluation before prototype. Builder.ai last round 250 million, $1 billion evaluation invested by Microsoft, by the Qatar sovereign funds, by Insight, by some of the largest. Turns out, as they're declaring insolvency, this is valued at over $1 billion, that number one, they fake their financials. Number two, not only do they not have AI that actually generates the code, the applications that they did have some revenue. It's not that they had no revenue. It
Yeah.
was just a bunch of developers in India. Oh, that you have no idea what I saw. I was just like, oh,
Talk about human in the loop.
that's a human is a loop. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
I was like, this can't be possible. I'm like, I know Microsoft. I know these top players when they do it, like the due diligence. How do they miss this? This was a Series D, $1 billion investments, A, B, C, and Insight Partners went in twice. That's one of the biggest investors around on some of the,
Right.
and I was just like, oh my God. So it is
Due
this,
diligence has gone out the window, right? In the rush,
this
the
kind
rush
of
of
like
investors.
the FOMO of like, oh my God, I didn't, and I have had those conversations where like, so I do technical due diligence, for a lot of our investment. I will go, but what they're claiming on their technical model capabilities, etc. I see no substantiation. Even the public paper, it's only internal. There's no third-party validation. When you look into the Builder AI, they claim they have custom models, proprietary, but there is zero benchmark.
Paper
There's no
work.
proof that even exists. There's no
Right.
even proof. And I'm just like, And I remember some of these conversations where I would flag these issues about a company we're looking at, and some head of investment be like, no, but this firm invested, that firm invested. I will follow them into whatever
Right.
because I can't get into the bigger deals. And I'm just like, and when this comes out, I'm like,
It just spirals out of control then. You fool one person and then everyone jumps in like on the bandwagon.
yeah,
I
this
know. It's
this
terrifying.
doesn't just this also hurts AI. It hurts the ones that actually has IP because now everybody will be
Right.
super doubtful. So
Exactly.
your good ones probably won't get funded either because they're looking at this like, yeah, it doesn't matter even if Microsoft or all these people when they said could still be
It's
we're
just in time for, I call it the summer skepticism cycle. I've noticed every June, July, since at least 2022, 2023. Yeah, definitely 2023. Everything's blew up at the end of 2022. And there's been this big cycle of like, some analyst is like, this AI hype bubble is bursting. No one's delivering ROI. Where's the beef? We're not going to get. And it's just starting. I know I've seen the recent news articles that are all about like 85% of projects still fail, 50% have been scrapped, right? CEOs and companies are continuing to invest anyway. They're doubling down and increasing investment because they've been learning what doesn't work along the way, right? They're confident they're going to, come out in the next couple of years. But I get it. It doesn't sound good to constantly be like, well, we didn't make the money we expected now, but just give it more money. And in 2 years, it's really going to pay off.
oh, this one. And the thing is the AI generated code, the whole space. I love the space in terms of what it's
Yeah.
enabling. We're talking about prototyping. We're talking about tech adjacent people, your non traditional engineering, really kind of being able to create apps that
Yeah.
fulfills needs. It is a great space. This is one of the few spaces that will actually have great ROI. And for something like this,
Oh,
I feel like
exactly.
it could have put a
You
cold
didn't
neck.
need to bullshit. This could be real. I know they have all this nice.
They
It
had the
has this
money. They
nice
could have been.
glamour, and they had the money to do it too. Exactly. Oh my
Yeah, and the
gosh. Are
CEO
there
has
you able to get
im-
criminal charges out of it?
there's warrants for the previous CEO who's still
Oh,
on the board, and accusations of money laundering, and I'm just like,
we just needed our Sam Bankman-Fried crypto moment. That's what we needed. Aw.
not gonna happen. Where there's money, there's fraud.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, and with that, oh, very upset with this, but
Exactly. Let go of the BS with us.
oh,
Oh, we can do it all. Shake it loose. Oh my goodness. Purged our vitriol and hatred.
it's a big
Yes,
one. That's a
excellent.
big one. $1 billion valuations. Ugh.
Oh, it's so frustrating. Just give us like 1/10 of that. Come on, just for being cute.
Yeah. Hey, we're knowledgeable. Just not just being.
I know.
We got actual. We
I'll
probably
you
have
know
better tech than they do. I'm just telling you right now.
exactly.
We
That's
have
the
better
worst
tech
part.
than they do.
And with that, we are going to finish up with plugs. Yuying, is there anything you want to plug this month?
I do, and it's different than all the other months. So actually, I am making a transition to go independent,
Nice,
wrapping up the fun work that I've been
exciting.
doing at Peak Six. So, you guys, I'm just launching my website and getting things checked out. But Wittingly Ventures, where we want you to commit acts of AI wittingly. And not
Unwittingly, I love it.
unwittingly. Exactly. My whole new plug, of course, my newsletter on Substack, substack.com, and you can always follow me on LinkedIn. And how about you, Polly?
Oh, fantastic. I also have something to plug. So we have our new cohort of the AI Career Boost Blueprint kicking off July 15th. We're doing a summer school for those interested. Well, summer in North America anyway. And we will be holding our usual masterclass to kick off the opening the doors one more time before we kick off. So if you missed your chance to get in on the last one, do check out our monthly masterclass. We'll be keeping up to date with everything that is happening in the industry relating to product leadership, and AI, as well as showing you the top skills you need to lead and succeed in AI in the summer of 2025. So looking forward to that and looking forward to kicking off that new cohort.
Awesome. And we're just going to tease a little bit. Polly and I have something in the works that will be new. We'll talk about it next time. Brand new offering from
That's
the two
right.
of us.
Coming your way. The
Yeah,
builders will be
coming your
very
way.
happy.
Right. That's right.
That's awesome.
Get a little bit of
Excellent.
dose of Ewing and Polly all together.
That's right. Getting hands on. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. That's another episode of AI After Hours, and we will see you next time.